After my previous video on what's the best way to set up your model for army painting, which included me trying my hand again at slap chop, which I don't use very often, I was left with quite a lot of comments in the comment section. A recurring theme is people telling me that I just wasn't using enough white and that I shouldn't be using gray in my dry brushing. So I went back and I watched other videos. I was a little bit confused because almost every other video done by other YouTubers always started out with gray and then involved multiple layers of dry brush blending in order to get it to the level of consistency that would work. So I decided, hey, I should give this one more try. So I whipped up the black primer and I primed up one of my spare models, which is a Russian Napoleonic officer. And this time I bypassed gray altogether. I went straight with matte white and a smaller makeup brush, and the first thing I did is I applied a slightly lower pressure dry brush onto the model to get the gray tone. I then went back for more white and then I applied a little bit more pressure to get the second gradient, which is going to be a little bit brighter than the gray tone that I laid down earlier. I then went back for a third round of white, and now I applied it only to the highest edges and I made it as white as possible just to get that differentiation between the gray tones, the mid tones, and the whites. This took me 2 minutes and 20 seconds total, and I was pretty happy with it. However, in the comment section there was also this comment by Piles of Shame Painting, and kudos out to you for suggesting this. And for this alternate method, I start by priming the entire model white. Now here's the simplicity in this technique. Before you do anything else, you're going to be washing this model with dark tone or something similar that will give you nice dark shadows. Now apply the wash with a little bit of water so it's thinned down, and then after that just solve it all over the model. Now this is so easy to do, and it only took me 25 seconds total, which is about 5 times faster than slap chop. Here are the comparison of both models, slap chop on the left and this new technique on the right. And the one thing that you'll notice is that slap chop, because it's dry brush, is going to be a little bit more grainy, but while the one on the right is a wash and it ends up being much smoother in all the transitions. But the funny part is, the amount of shadowing and blending that you get is almost exactly the same. Now I'm going to lay down some Army Painter speed paints on both models to see how they shake out at the very end. I use Crusader Skin Speed Paint for all the exposed flesh, and I do it on the slap chop model as well as this other model that I used the new technique on. I next use Polished Silver Metallic Speed Paint, and I put this on the swords as well as all the braids on this officer's cap. Next comes Glittering Loot Speed Paint, which I put on the epaulettes, the buttons, the hilt and pommel of the sword, as well as portions of the scabbard. Some simple hardened leather speed paint goes on the rest of the scabbard. For the signature green greatcoats of these Russian officers, I use Absolution Green. One of the nice parts about picking a Napoleonic model for this demo is that this model can basically represent any mini. There's enough variation in color and tone that even if you were painting, let's just say, a Space Marine, an Eldari, or something from World War II, you can see how these colors manifest from the metallics to the flat colors on this model, and you can picture how these two different priming techniques could work on your project. I next use Blood Red Speed Paint, and I put this on all the cuffs and collars to denote the regiment. You'll notice that my colors have been progressively darker. The reason I do this is because the lighter colors coming first will enable you to kind of paint over them if you have any mistakes by painting the darker colors on top of them later. I finish off with the darker speed paint, Grim Black, and I put this on the backpacks, the Kaiwer caps, as well as the boots. Now one thing you'll notice is that I didn't bother to paint the white, since it's already either washed or slap chopped, aka dry brushed. They're already basically done, so I just leave them the way they are. To help the colors on the model stand out a little bit better, I apply good old goblin green to the top of the bases, just to create that contrast. And here are both demo models done, on the left with slap chop and on the right with this quote-unquote new technique. A closer inspection, you'll see that they're almost identical as far as how much shading you have on them, but on the other hand, the slap chop technique is dry brushing, which means it's going to look a lot more coarse, and to make it nice and smooth like this new technique on the right, you would have to apply a lot of layers of dry brushing. Here's the slap chop model, 360 degrees around, and I'm much happier with how this slap chop ended up this time, so thank you everyone for the suggestion of using more white on it. Now let's compare it to this new technique. And what should we call this technique? I think we should call it splash dash. Why? Because you're applying a splash of wash followed by dashes of paint. Ha, catchy, eh? And this is honestly a very smooth, fast, and easy way to do the same thing that slap chop does. I hope you found this technique useful, and again, thank you to Piles of Shame Painting for suggesting this. I hope you join me in my next video.